I'm thrilled to introduce my next guest, Carole Radziwill, a woman whose grace and wit have captivated us all. Not only is she a highly respected journalist and author, but her deep intelligence and unique perspective have made her a standout, not only for me, but for so many. Carole's ability to navigate life with both humor and poise, especially in the face of personal challenges, inspires us all. She's a friend, a storyteller, a force to be reckoned with, and her experiences, both on and mostly off screen, give her an insight into the world that is refreshing as it is real. Welcome, Raz.
Hi. So nice to see you.
Raz. I'm so happy to have you back on. Oh my God.
Are you in the Berkshires or are you in?
I'm in the city. I'm just a couple neighborhoods over from you.
Oh, okay. You're uptown.
I know, it's funny. We can normally, do this. When we started the podcast, we did it in studio, and then after the pandemic, we didn't. And now this is the format. So even though we're in the same city, we're on Zoom.
Everyone does on Zoom now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just the way. It's just the way.
Way of the world.
Well,
how are you?
I'm so good. And I'm really so good because I'm really excited about this podcast because, of course, you're widely recognized for your role over 6 seasons on The Real Housewives of New York City. I know that show. I know that place. And it was a good look.
You do.
I tell you, it was a good look. I love you and I'm proud of you. But today, I really want to talk about your life off the show because, many know you. Many know that your career first started, at ABC. Some may know. Some may, know that your career started at ABC with Peter Jennings, and some maybe know that. Some maybe know that you reported on foreign stories in places like Cambodia and Haiti and India and
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan. I was going to get into that because maybe some know and maybe they don't, that you were stationed in Israel during the 1990 Gulf War. And then in 2001, you spent 6 weeks in Afghanistan.
I know. My God. That ages me.
In U.S. military bases. And I just wanted to give folks a reminder or some insights into your political positions, your passions that are woven into the fabric of who you are. And I'm super proud of it. And I just want to talk about it a little bit.
Oh, my God. When you mentioned the Gulf War, it's like no one even remembers I think of Afghanistan, not that it's anywhere near the Gulf, but like that war. But the original Gulf War, when Iraq invaded Kuwait in like 1991 or something. I mean,
1991.
Yeah.
1991. It was a few years.
Yeah. And then, that really, when you said that really felt old.
But it's not old because it's a part of the fabric of who you are. And let me just say this, you brag on my career a lot about, on the show and things like this. This is a real career that spanned 15 plus years and 3 Emmys. 3 Emmys. Let's talk about that because you went on after, the wars and things like that. You also went on to produce stories for several magazines, such as 20, Primetime Live. I remember you on. But your story on Vietnam War veteran Bobby Muller.
Yeah.
He had an anti-landmine campaign, correct, in Cambodia. And that would earn you your first of 3 Emmys.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Talk about Bobby, what he meant to you, and tell us something memorable about these Emmys.
I mean, I think it was. I feel like it was not to put a point on it, but I think it was the second Emmy I won because I met Bobby when we were covering the war, and when Peter was covering it in another story, he kind of was around, and that's when I first met him. And then when I started producing at the magazine shows. It was actually a very short-lived show called Day One. I know everyone remembers 2020, which has been on, is still on. And
I remember Day One.
Yeah. Oh, good. Day One was with Forrest Sawyer and Diane Sawyer, not related. And I was producing for that, and I remembered Bobby Muller he was such a dynamic person that I thought we should cover his story and what he was doing at the time, and trying to eradicate landmines in Cambodia, which at the time was only second to Afghanistan in the number of landmines that were planted both by the Vietnamese and by the Americans during the Vietnam War. So, and the Cambodians as well. So there were like 6 million landmines. There were like more landmines than people in Cambodia. And he was fantastic. I will say he was fantastic television. He was dynamic. He was in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the waist down. And I think that sort of propelled him into this life of taking care of other people and prosthetics. And he started waging this landmine campaign. This was before Princess Diana got involved in it.
Yes.
And everything. And so we did a story. A little known fact of that story, that now that you've reminded me about it, God, I haven't talked about this in decades. Bruce Springsteen was just coming out, or is on tour with his Born in the USA album. Huge, right? He was huge. And Born in the USA was written in part about people like Bobby Muller, the Vietnam vets, and Bruce and Bobby were really close friends. Quietly, it wasn't like that Bruce advertised it, or even that Bobby advertised it, but he said that Bruce Springsteen in the late 70s, this now was like 92, I think I was doing this story, in the late 70s and early 80s, that Springsteen kept the lights on at the Vietnam Veterans of America Foundation. So they became really, really close. And then I thought, maybe Bruce Springsteen will do an interview for this profile on his good friend Bobby Muller, who he wrote Born in the USA for, in part. And so I just took a chance. I mean, I like cold called like John Landau, who I think was still is his manager, and didn't hear back. And then like a month, or maybe it was longer than a month, we were almost wrapping up the piece, I remember. I get a call from a woman, God, I can't remember her name, on behalf of John Landau, following up on this interview request. And I said, oh, yeah, I just thought maybe Bruce would, want to talk about his friend. Of course, we wouldn't talk about anything else, maybe his music or the Born in the USA song. Mm-hmm. And she's like, okay. I was like, what? And like a week later, he showed up, and we rented. We used to do this. I don't know if they still do it, but like we would rent hotel rooms to do like studios.
Yeah.
So I rented a hotel room in the Peninsula Hotel, and like, enrolled by himself Bruce Springsteen. And I was like, hi, Mr. Springsteen. I was really young.
Now what we know about Bruce, of course he would do the interview.
I know. And I think honestly, it was his first ever network news interview. Like, he had never done that, but he was, not that he was already a superstar, but he wasn't doing like news interviews.
And he was at the height, kind of young and maybe not humble yet. Like, you know what I mean? He's so unbelievable.
Yeah. And I don't think he wanted any kind of press or anything, but he did this for Bobby, and he talked about writing Born in the USA. And anyway, it was a highlight, to say the least. My career was all downhill from there, but that was, and I think I always, Bobby Muller went on to win the Nobel Peace Prize, by the way.
Wow, I don't think I knew that. I definitely know that.
The following year, he won the Nobel Peace Prize for that campaign. And I won the Emmy. So it was a really great start to like a very long career of news. So that was fun. Thanks for reminding me.
I have to, because, I do know about these things, but I want to just make sure other people know about these, because your accolades also include an RFK Humanitarian Award.
Yeah, Peter gave me that.
GLAAD Award for your profile on Bill Bean, who was the first openly gay baseball player.
Yes, that was wild.
Talking about a landmine campaign, and then you're moving into the first ever, openly gay baseball player. Me knowing you how I know you now, of course you're that vast and wide, but wow, those are incredible, you know what I mean? Like bookends. And we didn't think about the first and third Emmy.
The first one was for a documentary, a show I did. I helped, work on abortion, the politics of abortion.
Let's see. Another
Um,
really important topic.
and the other one was about the Gulf, another show I worked on specifically about the Gulf War.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was the heyday, the golden age of news, I think. Who knew in the 90s? It's different now. People sometimes say, would you ever go back? And I honestly, I wouldn't, I couldn't. It's just not, I wouldn't recognize, I
Yes.
wouldn't recognize how it gets produced. And, back then we wouldn't be allowed to say, no one had opinions about the news or any
know.
issue. Like we couldn't even, I'm pretty sure we couldn't contribute to political campaigns or definitely not attend protests, rallies, marches, none of that. Like you just couldn't do it. You wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Even in your personal life. I don't remember any of my colleagues talking about personal opinions about anything. It was just
And
like
then
not
did
that.
they get a lot of hate mail too? You know what I mean? Think about that, because now as a journalist, I mean, you're putting yourself really, if you want to be a reporter on the front line, you're putting yourself out there for public
I guess
scrutiny.
there could have been hate mail, but it would go through like the snail mail, like and by the time you got it, it was like, 2 months later.
That story was so long ago. Sorry it bothered you.
I think it's a good old days, but yeah, that's how I got my start in my first career of many.
What, just before I move on, I just want to talk a little bit about Billy Bean.
Yeah.
What was it like for him? What was that like?
He was living at the time we did the story. He had already left baseball. God, it was so long ago. I can't, he was living with his husband, but it wasn't legal.
Right.
Or his partner. I think they called them partners. This was like 94.
Right.
And he was living in Miami. And they had opened a restaurant together, and they were just living like an openly gay couple. But he was the first. Can you imagine that? No, he was the very first professional athlete. I'm going to say athlete, but it definitely was baseball, and it probably was football also. The reason it's so important, and think of the policies now, he had a partner when he was on, God, I'm going to say the Oakland A's. Forgive me if I'm wrong about that. But he had a partner that was in the closet. He was in the closet. Everyone was in the closet then, right? And his partner tragically passed away. And because he was not open, he was not allowed to grieve. He was not allowed. He didn't even attend the funeral. And because he couldn't tell his team, I think he just played the game that night, like if nothing happened. And I think for him, if I recall, God, I hope I'm telling his story right. That was the trigger where he said, I can't live like this anymore.
Yes.
The person he loved most in his life had been in his life, and his support through his baseball career had died.
Yes.
And he had to act like it was just another day, and he couldn't live with himself. And then it was soon after that that he came out of the closet. There was a really good quote, a soundbite that he said, like about people not understanding. Well, I don't understand what it is to be gay, and I just don't get it. And then he said something, well, I don't know. I don't understand the quantum physics either, but there you go. It's a real thing.
Yes.
And I always think of that, and I think that's such the problem, especially nowadays. Everyone thinks that they need to understand it. Like, guess what? And I say this to everyone, you don't need to understand it.
Right.
You don't need to
understand.
Your life. It's not your life. You don't understand how gravity works either, but like it doesn't bother you. There's sometimes when I'm struggling with something, as you know, as everyone in the RHONY universe knows, I ran for the board of my building, and then I've been on the board for now the last 10 years.
Running it as the president.
Yes. And there's a lot of frustration there. And sometimes I don't understand why people do the things they do. And I have to remind myself, it's okay. I don't understand. Let it go.
Yeah. It's not your job to have to understand it,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
This is part of the fabric of who you are. You left ABC in, I think, was it 2003? And
I think so. Right after the Afghan war, like I came back from that war, and I think like in that 6 months, within 6 or 8 months, I left ABC News. So it was probably 2002.
2002.
Two or 2000. Yeah.
And then, I mean, obviously things happen, but the next big thing that happened to you in the public eye with your career was you wrote What Remains, your memoir.
Yeah.
A Memoir of Fate, Friendship, and Love. That was published in 2005.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about that. I just wanted to bring that back.
Hopefully.
And if you don't, go get it because it's an amazing book. It was on the New York Times bestseller list for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yes,
and your first novel. Now I know you. This is exciting. And I watched this happen. The process is really amazing for you, all of you writers out there. I mean, I love you, and I feel for you, and I respect so much what you do.
It's hard. It's hard. Actually, my novel, The Widow's Guide to Sex and Dating, is all the whole Bravo universe needs to appreciate that, because without that novel, and I had just kind of finished it around the time I was cast on RHONY, I don't know if I would have done the show, because a big part of it was like, all right, well, I'll do the show, and maybe it will sell some books, What Remains. But also I thought I have this novel that I hadn't sold at that point. And I thought, well, it's hard to sell a novel, even though my first book was a New York Times bestseller. You never know. This is a novel. That was a memoir. And I thought, well, maybe I should do this show and get I had no idea about the show, like what it was. I'd never seen it, but I was like, oh, maybe I'll get like a little notoriety. And then, well, sure enough, the book did sell, and it sold for
and you did get notoriety. So
check. So there you go. So without that book, no one, there would be no. I don't think there. I'm not sure if there would be a RHONY for me.
Right. I mean, it all is fated at the end of the day. I mean, we both signed up for marketing reasons.
Yeah.
And well, going back,
I felt like you were the only. In my experience with it, in my years, the only one that was running a proper business. And I always say that, like you said, I'll never forget going into your office, and there was a glam station set up in your office. You had an assistant, you had how many direct reports? Like 60, you had inventory, you had meetings. Like I remember looking at it was like a spreadsheet of a calendar of like you had meeting. I was a writer, so I was like kind of fucking off a lot during the filming, because I'm like, oh, I finished the book, I don't have to do that much, I'm not going to start another one. I remember seeing like you were like booked, meeting, and like I don't even know how you ran that big business and also filmed and been on the show.
I chased the hell out of production. If you ask anybody, like any of the producers on the show, what was my big thing, they would say the schedule. Definitely the schedule. I would ride them because they would put out the schedule sometimes on a Monday morning.
Yes, I remember that.
Not for the next week, kids, for that week. And I was like, yo, I can't do this. I can't work like this. I have all these other meetings I have to go.
Meanwhile, the rest of us were like, yeah, sure. When?
And that was hard for me because sometimes I did have to miss scenes because they moved around and I had to run stuff. But you mentioned going back. You could not go back to journalism or go back to the news today because things changed. That's how I felt. I was going to say it and I didn't, but now I'm going to bring it back up. That's how I felt going back to RHONY after I had been gone for so long and only kind of breezed in and out. It was unrecognizable. The productions, they do things. It was like unrecognizable. So you
just went back for like a day. Like I went
for
weekend?
3 days, a weekend, and I ran. Do you remember me calling you?
Yes, I do.
I thought I was being taped. I was like having a nervous breakdown. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And then you got mad at yourself because you were like, you should have fought me. Like you said to me something like, I wish you wanted to protect me from going, actually.
Well, because I think I had been on it much longer, so I saw a little bit where it was heading, and then I thought you were kind of in it when the like news in the 90s. It was sort of like the golden age of like it was just it was more fun and less produced, and not that, I mean,
You had it
even
the best. After what I went through on the show,
yeah,
being a cast member and then going back as a friend of or whatever for 3 days, I ran. I didn't walk. I
no,
ran.
I know.
It was
But what
unrecognizable.
season was, yeah,
Well, okay, now very exciting. I'm going to fast forward to 2019 because this is really, really cool. This is for you guys listening, we're going to get to it, but this in 2019, this was the beginnings of what we would become your journey with the moth. Now, I remember the first time you said to me that you were doing the moth, I was like, what the hell is that?
I know.
And then I looked it up and it's really cool. So can you take us through what the moth is? And I know the story, but I don't want to do any spoilers. Spoiler alert, kids. There,
yeah. Do you want me to
watch it? Well, give them enough.
I'll give you a little bit.
You're not going to give it away, but give it, so here's the moth. Take it away.
Well, first of all, the Moth is a not-for-profit storytelling group, and it's really an amazing, I'm sorry I didn't get involved with it sooner when I was on the show, because I really would have promoted the hell out of it. Yeah. It's a not-for-profit. So, and they focus on storytelling, and it started in the late 90s. Remember Poetry Slam? Like, right? It was like you would get up for 5 minutes and like these super talented people would recite poetry, like what is it, like freestyle rap almost.
Word and so spoken word even.
I feel like you would be good at, I feel like you would be good at that. You would have been good at that. And anyway, the Moth was similar to that. And I remember going to one of the shows, and I think it was the Public Theater, and random people would just get up from the audience, and then they would tell a story for 5 minutes. It was only 5 minutes, and it was like from the top of their head, no notes. It had to be a true story, happened to them in their life. And I was like, wow, like, so it's like open mic night. And it was really impressive, because I thought could never do that. Hence, 15 years later, I'm on a reality show.
Stage fright. I want to talk about that. I remember going to one of your book readings, and it takes you a minute to
No, I'm super shy. Okay.
Yeah, okay, there you go. I don't want to.
And I'm awkward, and I don't, So cut to, I guess it was 2019. Actually, the story starts in the 60s, but it's sort of like I started thinking about the story in 2017, 18. And it was, well, let me just tell you that the headline of the story I then told on the Moth on stage, no notes, nothing. And it wasn't 5 minutes. Now they're like 12 to 14 minutes. It's called the main stage. So I did a main stage Moth story about this Cartier tank watch that I had once owned. And and I'll just tell you, the headline was, and I always started with this, 3 women were in possession of the watch, and all 3 were widowed in their 30s. And people were like, wait, what? And so I wrote the story based on my life and the truth of the story. And then I used to tell the story. You told me, of course. Yeah, I used to at dinners and lunch, whatever. It
was unraveling while I knew you in a way, though.
Yes, it was. It was. But I would tell this story about this watch that I owned that once belonged to Kennedy Onassis, that was passed down to Anthony, my husband, and then to me. And it's a story of the 60-year journey of this watch and what happened to the women when they were in possession of this watch, starting with Jackie, and then me, and then ending with my best, closest girlfriend, who I gave the watch to. But I would tell this story at dinners and stuff, and my friends would say, tell the story about the watch. It's so crazy, the story about the watch. So I would tell this story, a version of the story all the time. And then I was in LA with my friend Mark Adelson. He's fabulous. He knows everyone. We were at lunch, and he had a friend there, and I can't remember her name. She was lovely. She was a reporter for the New York Times. Anyway, I'll think of it. And Mark says, tell her the story of the watch. So I go, blah, 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 I tell the story of the watch. And she happens to know the creative director, one of the creative directors of the Moth. And I was like, oh, wow, the Moth. I remember that from the 90s. I was so excited. And she said, oh, I'm gonna tell Jennifer is her name. Jennifer. Yes. And a couple weeks later, I get a call from Jen at the Moth. I was like, Like it's
So
it's a big
exciting.
deal for me, but like for the
Yeah.
rest of the country, they're like, it's no one knows the moth. But it's a
It's a
really
big deal.
cool
And now a lot
thing.
of people know the moth because of you. I feel that way when I book
Oh,
guests
really?
sometimes. I get so excited. I'm like, oh my God, because nobody else needs to know. I'm in my own little stupid kitchen, but like,
Yeah,
because I get to share it with people. And
yeah,
the moth you got to share and this
yeah,
really wild story that is
yeah.
historical.
Yeah, yeah. So I tell Jen the story over the phone, and she was like, "Will you write it and perform it for the month?" And so I was like, "Well, I can write it definitely." So I did write a short story. It was only like 3,000 words of this watch, and then. I mean, honestly, it's funny because we were on the reality show, and I think people assume that it's like you're really comfortable on
Yes.
stage in front of cameras and stuff, but like
Like,
I really wasn't. But I thought, okay, I'm just going to do this and see what it's like. And every single time I performed it, we kind of toured around the country, um, and I ended up doing it for the last time in London last spring. Every single time I was so nervous. Like, it's not like the reality show where you just like, we showed up and said a bunch of
no,
dumb
it's
things and
very
like, we
different when you
didn't
walk
care.
out on a stage and everybody's staring at you
And,
versus,
and
a
yeah.
camera in your living room.
And so I told the story, and it sort of was a crowd pleaser. And then they had to retire it because they wanted to put it on their podcast, so the Moth podcast. And
Oh, because just to quickly segue though, I know your last performance is over, but the reason
yeah,
why we're not giving you guys spoiler alerts is because you can still see it. You can still listen to this story. So tell them
yes.
really quickly where they can.
They can listen to it on it's a podcast called the Moth Podcast. And if they just like wherever, I don't know, I'm not in the podcast world, but wherever
I
you get
am.
your pods. Yes,
So you can
wherever
look
you
up the
get your
moth and you
podcast.
can look up Carole Radziwill and you
Yeah,
can
if
look
you
up
put
the
in,
story.
it's called the Cartier Curse. So you
Yeah.
can put in my name or the title, and they recorded each time I did it in different cities. They recorded it, so I'm not sure which city they
But they
used for
took the
the.
best one that they
They
felt
took
was,
the best one. Yeah.
the best,
No, I think
what
the
had it.
best one was London, but they'd already just made the decision about which one
Yeah,
before
yeah, yeah,
London. I
yeah.
could send you
Sure.
privately. I could send
Send
you
me
London.
London,
Yeah,
please.
I'm gonna send
I
you London.
really, really do want to see
I
it.
will. I
Okay,
will.
so y'all, there's a curse watch. There's a story. It's unbelievable. It's fun. It's freaky, But let me
Yeah.
ask you a question, and because you guys got to watch it. Do you still believe the watch was cursed or is cursed? Like, what do you believe
Yes.
that? Yes.
No, listen, as a journalist by training and nature, like I'm a very practical, I'm a very
Yes.
practical, rational person. I believe in
Yes.
science. I believe in facts. I don't believe in alternate facts. I just like, so it was really difficult for me to come to terms with the fact that there was something amiss. Because what I stopped believing in at certain point in my life is coincidence. So
Me
like
too.
we all like have these casual coincidences, but when it's something that's happening again and again and again, I just really that's what gets my attention. And
Yeah.
that's what was happening with the watch. And if I didn't believe in it, even as I was trying to get rid of the watch,
Yes.
and the final scene, I thought, not only do I believe it now, but like I underestimated the power of it, because it really, in my attempt to disengage from this watch and get it back to its what I saw rightful owner, Cartier,
Yeah.
it came boomeranging back at me, like. And it was literally like, and I think I described it in one of the times I told this story, is like that the horror movie where the girl like makes it safely out of the house, and she's like sitting by the lake, and she's like, she can breathe, and all of a sudden like the arm comes up and drags her back into the water. The end. It's like
Yeah.
right before the end.
Love it. Let me ask you one other question about the watch before we move on.
Yeah.
Did you ever tell Lee, your mother-in-law, Lee Radziwill, about your curse theory?
Well,
Did you?
when I decided I was going to auction it,
Yeah.
well, I didn't even know if I was going to. I decided that I needed to get it back to
Get rid of it.
Cartier. I went to her we had dinner. She was like in her 80s at this
Yeah,
point.
she was older. Yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted like her blessing, but also her advice on how to do this, and she was surprised I still had the watch because no one had seen it, and I wasn't like flaunting it or doing,
Right.
it was like for the most part in my top drawer, my like where you keep
Yes,
your socks.
totally. 100%.
I mean, I was not like keeping this like as a sentimental uh valuable piece that it was. And so I was going to tell her what I thought, but for some reason she was, she was fantastic. She was so interesting and so original. The one thing about her that I admired, a lot of things I admired about her, but the one thing is she was not nostalgic or sentimental
Right.
about her previous life. And certainly there were others who had less of an access that were more sentimental, but she was not that way. But when I brought up the watch, and the engraving on the back of the watch was from her husband, her first husband, her Anthony's dad.
Yeah.
She just got as most nostalgic and sentimental as I'd ever seen her about that night and how Jackie had gotten the watch from her husband, and the fun and the whole story behind Jackie getting the watch. So I never did tell her, and then she died shortly
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
So I never did
That's,
tell her,
I
and maybe
wonder.
that's it.
Yeah, it's all right. So she
She
knows.
knows. She knows now.
One of my
She's
favorite
one of my angels.
one of my favorite things that you gave me was her and Jackie's book that they wrote as kids.
Oh yeah.
Such
One
a
special
wonderful-
summer.
Yeah, One Special Summer, and it's a really great book if you're into Lee and Jackie and what they were
Yeah.
like before they married these men and kind of what
Yeah.
they're. It's a really cool book. It's two girls,
Yeah. I
sisters.
mean, she was always so interesting and original. And that was their first trip to Europe, alone as teenagers. They were like 18 and 19.
Yeah.
And actually, she befriended this guy, Bernard Berenson, on that trip, who she became a lifelong pen pal kind of with. And he passed away many years ago. And when Lee passed away in 2019, all of her belongings, like her writings, everything, everything except whatever, really all of her, what do they call,
Her estate.
her whole estate, minus real estate and whatever, all that
Yes.
stuff, but all
Right,
of
all
her
of her
personal
stuff.
things, all
Yeah,
of her
personal effects.
personal effects. Thank you. I was looking for that word. We just, like a few months ago, donated to the Bernard Berenson kind of Institute in Florence, Italy. So all of her papers, hundreds of letters that she wrote to her sister and from her sister and her family, and partial memoirs that she had started writing and then stopped, and is all going to be there. So
That's
it's really nice.
awesome.
And
For those
she
of you who don't know, Lee Radziwill was a fashion icon, so I was always a big fan of her. And when I got to meet Carole, I was like, just so you know,
yeah,
your mother-in-law's a badass bitch.
She was.
I loved her. Speaking of Europe, you just got back from Paris.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I didn't. I want to just because I didn't even get a chance to talk to you personally about the trip. What did you find? What were you in Paris for?
I was in Paris because a very, very dear friend of mine, Bennett Miller.
I know Bennett.
Who's you've met him, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's really great.
Known him 20 years.
Yeah.
He has an exhibition at the Gagosian Gallery. It was an opening. He's a movie director, and he directed a lot of like every movie he's directed is like Oscar nominated, Oscar for everyone. But he sort of put that on the back burner for a while, and he got into photography, but specifically photography using AI. And he's a genius. Like he's a real.
Well, I was going to say he has. What is this art exhibit about? And now I know because I'm like, did he take snips of his movies? That's so cool.
No, it's a total. He's completely. He's an art. He considers himself an artist now, and that's what he does. And I'm always saying, Bennett, you got to make more movies. You're so good at it, and he will. He will eventually. But right now, he's really focused on this art. And anyway, the opening he opened last year in New York, and then they had the opening in Paris. So my girlfriends and I were just like, let's go to Paris for 3 days. It happened to coincide with Couture Fashion Week, which is not my thing.
I know,
Uh,
but it's really fun. I mean, it's Fashion Week in New York right now. I just got back from a runway
oh,
show.
it is. Well,
You're producing a play on
well,
Broadway.
yeah, because I sort of, in the wake of all this, like cultural and social like unrest and stuff, and in my determination to protect my peace, I thought, I'm going to focus on the arts. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on art. I'm going to focus on, going to a lot of theater, helping where I can. And I had this opportunity to invest in this off-Broadway play. It's a Sam Shepard play from 1977 called Curse of the Starving Class. And it's been so extraordinary and so interesting. We were talking before about like being on a reality show and people think that um, somehow it's the same as like being on stage and this and that. And it certainly is not. But watching these actors go from table read to studio rehearsal to like tech rehearsal, which is what they're in now, it's really extraordinary. And we were lucky to get Calista Flockhart to play one of the main roles, and Christian Slater. Do you remember Christian Slater?
Of course.
Yeah, he's great. He's one of the main roles, and sort of two sort of newcomers, Cooper Hoffman, who's Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, who's
Oh, bless him.
amazing. He was in Licorice Pizza.
Oh,
You
wow.
saw
I'm gonna
that?
write that one down. I forgot I wanted
Um,
to see that. I
and
was
then another young, really talented girl, Stella Marcus. Anyway, the cast is phenomenal. Um, off this one, how obsessed I am with New York City and I love it so much. But this is one of the things that I just really will endlessly love about the city. And that's the ability to go to see these plays off Broadway, because this is like a real theater goers play. This is not The Lion King. You know what I
right.
mean? This isn't like, this isn't Music Man.
Right.
It's real, intense, intellectual, thought-provoking, interesting play, and off-Broadway theater, which is small. It's like, I don't know how many seats, it's small. So you feel like you were right in the
Right
play.
there. Mhm.
And it's just interesting. I mean, the premise of it is like the shrinking lower middle class and how
Yeah.
they're taken advantage of by big corporations, in this case, land developers and speculators. And that's the curse, is that they can never sort of get out of this cycle of poverty. And but it also, there's a sheep in it, a real live sheep, which
Oh,
to
really?
be honest, during tech rehearsals, the sheep, and they're in
On the
previews now.
stage?
You can see the show in previews, which is interesting. It hasn't opened yet officially until next week, but the sheep steals the show. Like,
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, so it's called Curse of the Starving Class.
yes, it's put on by, it's a new theater. It's not a new theater group. It's called the New Group. It's a theater production, not for profit. Again, like the Moth.
Yeah.
I like to be involved with these charity, not for
Yeah.
profit
I love it.
organizations. I think they're doing the best work, and again, it's like, it just makes you feel good that you can participate. And in this way, like, I'm sort of like learning. To be honest, my end game, I haven't really told anyone this, but my end game is to write What Remains, my memoir, as a play.
Yes.
So I'm sort of, it's like a little bit of
Yes.
an education, a little bit of
Yes.
like dipping my toe into the theater world. Of course, I went to a lot of theater, both off
And you
Broadway
have
and
been
on.
going to a lot of theater. I
I
mean, oh,
do, but like it's different, like kind of getting in on like a little bit on the inside,
yes.
and talking to the director. The director is like epic theater director named Scott Elliott. My friend who got me involved in it, Jeff Massey, is like a costume, was and still is. He's a designer, and he was a costume designer on a lot of plays, like under the radar. And this is his first like play that he's actually producing. So it's with a group of people that I trust, I like, that are friends. But the
Oh,
cast is, the cast
I'm gonna
is
go
just
see it. I
top.
can't wait. It previews in February, right? Starts to
It's in previews now. This is how extraordinary. The actors are in tech rehearsal all day, And then at 7 p.m. and Tech is like running through it in costume and everything with the sheep too.
With the sheep, with the lights, everything.
Everything. And then at 7 o'clock they do a show. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's just like
my girlfriend Janice just got here and she's a big play person. She's gonna come see it with me. It's playing at the Signature Theater. It's what's that, 42nd and 10th?
42nd and 10th. I think I have a link for tickets and everything on my Instagram bio. So people can go there, or, you know, it's called The Curse of the Starving Class. It's Sam Shepard. It's the new group theater production. Yeah, at Signature.
And tell them your Instagram handle just in case.
My Instagram handle is is it called handle still, or real?
I don't know. I might be dating myself, but I am old, so halfway there.
It's my name, Carole Radziwill. So it's my name. So
I knew that, but I just want to make, because, you know, like I am Heather State.
I did a post like a couple days ago about the play, so it's like the first post. And then the link to the tickets and stuff is all in my bio.
Right, in your bio. Okay, we got to go see The Curse of the Starving Class.
And it plays until April 1st.
Okay, good. Right before my birthday. And then you can take me out for my birthday when you're done.
Sure. I can take you to the play for your birthday.
Yes, I'm going. I want to go with you, obviously.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see it. Okay, this is another thing I wanted to talk to you about before I let you go. And this is really important. We need to talk about skincare for a second.
Oh.
Because let me just tell you right now. All right, I want to talk all about me right now. But before I talk about me, because we're going to get to where I am right now, I just want to talk a little bit about, because I don't know if you have a skincare guru, but you're mine. So I ask you, you're mine. I ask you everything before I do it. I mean, everything. You really, really are like my sister, like when it comes to that. So let's just run through, like, what are you using now? Just for the people listening, like, what's important for us, like in our 30s, 40s, 50s, like, how does it change? You know, just give us a run by. And then I want to talk about laser treatments and some of the latest treatments. That's what I want to talk to you about.
I mean, I don't, okay. I mean, you know, it occurs to me that now being 60, it occurs to me that a lot, I mean, when we were in our 30s, there wasn't anything to do, right?
No. I mean, maybe Botox, you know, and filler was
this is a little known secret, but I did the very first story on Botox that aired nationally in the United States.
What year was it?
It was, okay. So I'm a fucking expert.
I know. I told you you're my skincare guru.
It aired
Botox story.
It aired in 1993. I was working at 2020 at the time. We heard that women, socialites, rich women, were injecting poison into their skin to get rid of their wrinkles. Of course, we were like, that's outrageous. What is going on? And I interviewed Dr. Pat Wexler. She was a dermatologist, still is. She was the only one in New York doing Botox. Okay, so this is where we are. Like, take your hot tub time machine and fucking go back to the 90s. And I interviewed her. She was, again, a great television. And I'll never forget, I was like, but Dr. Wexler, can't, you know, women can get poisoned. Yeah. And she was like, honey, you don't have enough money to poison yourself. Because at that point, it was so expensive. Yeah, really expensive. She's like, you don't have enough money. And I'll never forget, I laughed so hard. And then I went to Canada, where it was originally discovered for cosmetic purposes. Dr. Carruthers was an ophthalmologist, and her husband was a dermatologist, and she used to inject Botox into her patients for like lazy eye and blepharoplasty, you know, like all this like eye disorders, and it's been used for eye disorders for 50, 60 years at that point. Yeah. And her patients would come back and they'd be like, can you inject the Botox again? And she's like, oh, no, you're fine. You don't need it. Then they'd be like, yeah, but when you do that, my wrinkles go away. And she was like, what? So she did it. Her first patient for cosmetic treatment was her receptionist. Wow. And yeah. And then that, you know, the rest is history. Obviously, the FDA approved it many, many years later. But that after that piece aired, I think a lot of dermatologists were off-labeling it and using it for cosmetic purposes. Sure.
It's exactly where we are right now with peptides today.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Exactly.
All the rich women are taking peptides.
Are taking NAD and all these peptides and anti-aging peptides.
Inhibitors, that's Ozempic, Wegovy, you guys know, because I've had podcasts about it.
Oh, I'm not like plugged into all of
I'll
that.
tell you
Like,
everything I know about peptides because I know a lot.
oh, okay.
It's the nutrition side of me, you know.
So that was that was the beginning. So I don't know, like, but that I was probably 34 already when that piece aired. So Botox wasn't even in our 30s, was not a
No,
big thing. But
no.
I sometimes I think now it's like having reached 60, I feel like a lot of the work and the stuff that women and men, by the way, do in
Yes.
their
They sure
20s
do.
now, right? 20s and 30s, early 40s. Like it all has to get
Oh, early.
corrected.
I
It all
know.
gets corrected. So, girls, ladies,
Back
guys,
off.
just know whatever you're doing now in your 30s and early 40s, mid 40s, you're going to start correcting in your 50s. And that
Yeah,
is
when
what
it
I
comes
feel
to
like.
cosmetic, but if you want to up your collagen, you know, like make sure your collagen absorption is good. You want to prevent pro-aging, you know,
Yeah.
but it's funny
I
because
think there's some good treatments. Like, listen, I am not an expert by far, but like, I've been doing this PRP and
that's what I want to talk to
PRFM.
you about.
Yeah, I mean, it's intellectually, it sounds like it works in the way that it's like slow and steady production of collagen in a natural way, using
Oh,
your own plasma-rich platelet treatment, PRP.
therapy.
And I don't know, it seems like it's just not the quick fix you would get from Restylane filler or some of these hyaluronic acids, right? It's not a quick fix, but if you do it over a period of, each month for 4 or 6, 7 months, you do. I mean, I feel like I've noticed a difference in my
I can,
skin quality and
I
tone.
definitely, that's why I did it. So I wound up doing it. I
Oh,
got
you do.
PRF. I did PRF.
RFM. Yeah.
Yes,
You
PRFM.
look great,
Thank you, thank you. You
but
know
you
what
just have to be consistent. That's
you
what I
have to be
tell
consistent. I
everyone
did
who
it
asks me.
twice. So
You
what
gotta
I
do
liked is because what happened was people made up for lost time with the Botox. Okay. So like when I entered the Housewives, I was like, everybody looks crazy. And remember,
because everyone was doing Botox.
yeah, well, I mean, I looked at some of the, you know, like I could see their mouths not moving, and I could tell when some of
Yeah.
the housemates had just come from the office or whatever, they had made a change, you know? And I remember saying to you, like, I feel like I literally like the Me Too crowd, like, well, maybe I should be doing it. Like, should I be doing it? And
I mean, Botox is when in the 90s and when I was just like the forehead and crow's feet. But
yeah,
now I do know that it's done. I find when you overdo it, like it
not good.
shows, especially like, I don't know what they're doing around the
The
mouth or
mouse. Well, that's what I like the
I
PRF
don't
for.
understand. Yeah,
So you guys,
that's
let me
what
talk
I would
about
be
this.
doing.
What a lot of people, you may have heard of it, and listen, these are not you know, inexpensive procedures. But the thing that I do want to say about it is that if you are serious about pro aging and you have something that you don't like, you know,
Mhm.
you don't have to live with it. And but research it. It really is important.
Yeah.
Doing the services on you. And what I liked that Carole introduced me to this PRF, what I liked about it is it's using my own blood. So you're not filling anything weird or foreign into your face.
Yeah.
You're using your own blood to help produce
Plasma. People
plasma.
get, yeah,
Yeah, well, they separate. They actually
they
draw your
separate.
blood, but then they spin it all out, and they
Yeah.
have to spin it at a certain rate, and they pull it out, and it's wild. It looks like chicken.
Like when they first started doing it, this is typical because there's a little bit of sexism and misogyny in it, but they would call it vampire facial, like it's just
Yeah,
so weird. And it was like,
yeah,
again,
nothing
Botox
like
from
it.
1992. It's
Yeah,
like, what are women doing now? They're doing these, but what exactly, it is exactly how you described. You draw blood and they spin it, they take the plasma out from the red blood cells and whatever, and they use the plasma
yeah.
to create a collagen stimulant for your skin. And I do it like micro needling it on top for surface, but then
Yeah.
also you can do injections under in the dermis, which is good to really stimulate
That's what
collagen
I
in the
did. And I
dermis.
did it because of this area. You know,
Yeah,
like
another
and I
friend of mine
noticed it
started
on
doing
the podcast because I
it. You
stare at
did? I
myself
can't.
with this little stupid picture. Now they're gone because
Yeah.
the reason I called you about it is because I was really bothered by this, my mouth. And I
But
did
do
not.
you ever get like a Fraxel laser? Because sometimes
That's
that.
the next thing she's going to do next is she
Okay.
said Fraxel is next for me. So, so filler is not what you want to put in your lips, you guys. Cause I was like, I mean, I don't know. That's not for me. I mean, listen, here's the thing.
The thing about filler, I will
out there doing it for all those girls that look amazing. Like I was just at a fashion store with Jane Seymour. I would like to know who her doctor is. Jane Seymour looks exactly like she did when she was on The Medicine Woman. That's what I was going to say. The people, like, if you're going to, there's certain applications of filler that actually work well and look good, but more than anything, because filler is a commodity, it's just all the same, right? Hyaluronic acid, which your body produces on its own also. Yes. But the injector, it matters who is injecting it. Like it really, that is doctor trained. So you want to go to someone who you've really researched and looked at a lot of their patients. Because I find like every injector and our dermatologist has a sort of aesthetic, right? Like what they do. And you can look at their own faces too sometimes to find it. But if it feels like
I have a great one.
Oh, good. And I know your girl. If it feels like it's too good to be true, like, wow, that seems really affordable. Like it might be. So watch watch who's doing it. You know what I mean?
Do you go to Lana? Lana's in your neighborhood.
No, I made an appointment with Lana. I didn't wind up doing it with her because I was up north. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so I was talking to you. I was talking to Lana.
You told me.
And then I wound up doing it up north. But one of the things I also am about to buy, and I wanted to ask you about it. What about for at-home treatments? So I still have, you're going to laugh at me so hard right now. I still have those handheld red lights that we use.
Oh, yeah. You gave me my first one.
I gave you yours.
2011.
And now you graduated way past me. And I know you have masks and all good shit by your bedside. So what's the LED mask? I
don't use I should. I don't use it as much as I should because I really think, there's LED and then there's laser. Now they have at-home laser treatments that you do. It's very time consuming, but I think the results are good. And the mask is like the Dr. Dennis Gross mask, right? And that's great for like your surface of your skin, but the laser is going to penetrate into the dermis and where collagen really needs to be rebuilt. Yeah. So I have both. I am bad about, like, usually for me, consistency is everything. And like, I never in 40 years have ever fell asleep with makeup on. I moisturize, I do peptides, I do all this stuff. But sometimes I'm not as great with the masks. Right. But they do work. You just really have to be consistent with them. And if you don't want to go get a laser treatment, because they can be expensive, because you have to get like 2 or 3, right? Like you get 2 a year or something, like even a Fraxel. I wouldn't get more than 2 Fraxels a year. Like, I feel like it's too much.
There's downtime with that. Like a lot of the stuff.
A little bit, yeah.
A little tiny downtime.
I mean, it's not like a CO2 laser, which is really downtime. Remember when Ramona, I don't think you were on the show. Ramona had a CO2 laser treatment and she flew like the next day to Mexico. Like, she's so nuts.
She got dragged behind a truck. I remember when Leanne got a staph infection on her face from doing a laser.
Wait, what?
She had some chemical peel or something, and it wound up because you're exposing yourself. So the other thing,
post-care is really important.
Yeah, post-care is important. The person you're doing it with is important. Okay. So what's your favorite skincare routine? Let's give them a quick blast, and then I'm going to end this thing.
My favorite now, I use this great serum. It's by this woman, Angela Caglia, and it's I don't want to get into the science of it, but it's actual stem cell treatment. And I think like exomes, people hear about exosomes a lot now. It's sort of like in the vernacular in terms of beauty and anti-aging. And it has like the most high grade of exosomes as you can get in a single product. And I'm telling you, it really works well. And then there's a brand called Eighth Day that has peptides, what we talked about, that I love. They have a toner which has probably glycolic acid. Exfoliating chemically is always really important. I would dump all those physical exfoliants with the grains in it. Like that's really tears up your skin. But the chemical
And
exfoliants,
most of them are natural. I mean, hopefully, if you are using one that's salt or something like that, and not those horrible plastic beads.
But I think people tend to rub too hard. I mean, it does tear up your skin. A chemical exfoliant is better. And so anyway, this company, it's called Eighth Day, and I do love it. It's doctor-based science. And then for my facialist, because Lana, I should probably, maybe I'll post about Lana. She's so great. Her mom, Angela, is like the best facialist in New York. I swear to you. And she turned me on to this French, everything's French now. This French, wait, hold on. I'm sitting at my vanity.
It sure is French.
Oh, it is. Yes. She turned me on to this French company called Valmont. I just started using this. This is the toner. I mean, I don't want to make this a commercial, but this I love. So
Valmont, I asked you what you're using. So basically,
I use that now, and she even gave me like little samples of them. Nice. This is the mask, and it's been like for me. So funny. I'm literally like talking about landmines, war.
that would be a normal day in a conversation with me and you. So
and like, what am I putting on my face? Yeah, but I tried to take the redness out. So I love retinol. Retinol is good, and it's anti-aging, and it's good for dark spots and pigmentation. Except it does for me, my skin, it creates a little redness. So I kind of have to like just use it once in a while. But I still and I still have the this famous blue bottle that everyone talks about, Dustin Spotter. This is the retinol. But I try to keep it simple.
Yeah, that's what my skincare is. I use Dubois Beauty, and the person who I did my facials up at Complexions, Albany, but she as an esthetician, built her own skincare line.
Yeah, those are the best.
That's the best. And it's simple and it's clean. That's the other thing, you guys, clean ingredients, please. If you do one thing after this podcast, just please use clean ingredients, because your skin is your largest organ, and America allows a lot of stuff in products that Europe doesn't.
Yeah. That's why I like that French one. Yeah. You know what I'm also using? Because I'm literally sitting at my vanity. You could not have asked me about skincare in a worst possible place, because I'm like staring at it all. But they have, this is called Make Beauty, MAKE. I don't know Make Beauty. It's actually, this is like a foundation, but it's super, super light, and it's also skincare. So I don't know. I would be investigating these kind of companies that are using makeup, but it's skincare. Yeah. Yes. So whatever is in here, and I love it. And it's just like, I just sort of got turned on to it. I have, this is like the foundation. I have a concealer.
I've been using the Ila, ILA, what, I don't know. I have it somewhere.
Yeah, a lot of them, like the niche brands are, and this is going to go mass too. Like you said it here first. In 10 years, it's all going to be skincare. Skincare, makeup as skincare.
Wellness, skincare, here it is. So, and you heard it here first and you heard it here last, and that's all we have to say. Well, we better close this up, because we're running too long, but I love you and I miss you. I'm sorry we didn't have dinner tonight, because we're doing a podcast instead. And
I feel like we
did. We caught up a bit. Anything else that I didn't cover?
I don't know. Are your listeners going to be like, God, she does not shut the fuck up?
No, because your podcast with me is a little bit different.
Oh, okay, because I feel like
this one was really important to me to really round you out, Rads, because I just wanted to go back, because I love you and everybody else loves you, but I wanted to make sure that we just kind of went back up a little bit. I wanted to back down a little bit and back her up.
Back that shit up.
All right. With that note, thank you so much, everybody. Where can Carole? Instagram is the best place for you.
Yeah, I'll link tickets to the play, and I have posts about Lana, and she does all my PRP and all that.
Everything. And you guys can always once we post the podcast on my page, you can ask questions, and we'll answer your skincare questions and everything like that if you have them. So we love you. Yeah. Thanks for listening with us.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Health, Harmony, and Heather and Carole, and we'll be back at you again soon.